I was asked to say something brief about political and social imagination and what we might do to reinforce them in the next months or years. I want to comment on both the short term and the long term task. In the short term, we're in a very strange position 2 years on into the pandemic. I think in the early periods, the public in many countries wanted to use the crisis to deal with fundamental challenges of inequality, poverty, climate change, to not waste the crisis, as Rahm Emanuel had said at the time of the financial crisis in 2007-8. Then, as the pandemic went on, people became tired. They just wanted to return to normal. And then, most recently, in this year, with the Ukrainian war, we see a risk of slipping backwards on things like action on climate change, ever more intense fiscal pressures on governments, squeezing out the space for imaginative problem solving. But I think it's really important we keep a focus on the long term task. And here we face a near certainty that the next few decades will require really fundamental transformations in how we live, to move to zero carbon emissions, to cope with aging, to deal with deep structural inequalities, to learn to live with ubiquitous artificial intelligence. And for that, I think we need more, not less, political and social imagination. We need to escape from the apocalyptic sense of the only possible future is ecological disaster, or the idea that AI and robots are simply going to take over our world and we'll just watch on passively. Instead, we need the best thinkers, the creative innovators, entrepreneurs, academics, political parties to think a generation ahead. How could our workforce be organized differently? How could we run education in ways which are truly lifelong, truly capable of cultivating qualities as well as just formal knowledge transfer? How can we reinvigorate democracy and perhaps change decision making throughout our economy? How can we embed in all our institutions a true sense of the long term of how to achieve social, ecological, and other goals, as well as financial return? And that's not going to be easy, but we can learn from other fields, from the arts, from design, from fiction, about how to awaken imagination, how to turn practical ideas into compelling narratives. And I think if we don't do that, we shouldn't be surprised if dark authoritarian forces fill that space with often very simplistic answers to the future. We need to do this work not in the sense of designing detailed blueprints for the future, but rather guides, roadmaps, which then can help us think through what experiments we can do now in schools and universities, in workplaces, in training organizations, and through that process of learning by doing, collectively, using our collective intelligence, help to shape a better society a generation or two into the future. And us living in relatively peaceful, relatively prosperous countries, and especially a country like Denmark, I think have a particular duty to the world to keep our eyes on the long term and to keep fueling our shared imagination about how things could be better. Good luck.